Yes, so we're gonna start with today's post exam analysis. So as I mentioned before, today we're gonna go through about the major trendings we have in terms of the Math Kangaroo for level 1 and 2 and also 3 and 4. And beside that, we're gonna have a very quick go through about the questions, like the answers we have. However, after the webinar, we will definitely send you like the explanation for each question in the latest Math Kangaroo. So no worries, we're gonna send you the detailed things later. Okay, so now we're gonna go over. First of all, please let me introduce myself. So I am the Math Kangaroo coach from Think Academy, and last year we have about like 30% of the national level 1 perfect score from my class. So I also hope like today we're gonna share more insightful news about Math Kangaroo and hope every kid can get a very satisfied result from the Math Kangaroo. But what I want to say is Math Kangaroo is definitely just a start. I hope everyone can get confidence and also like the interest in math for the long-term run. Okay, so let's move on to the agenda. Definitely, we're gonna go through about the trendings we have, including level 1 all the way to level 4. And beside that, we're gonna summarize quickly about the long-term math competition plan. And beside that, we're gonna have the scoring checking. It will more like for the children part, you can invite your child later for this part so they can go through about the questions, including the answer, and then later on they can double check with themselves whether they got it correct or not. Okay, so first of all, I just want to make sure like you can check with your children, like how do they feel about the Math Kangaroo? Because I am a teacher from the 2nd grade. So after the Thursday's test, I also asked my student, and many of them said it's not that hard. Some of them said it's not that hard and quite easy in terms of the 3-pointer questions. So today we will also go through that. So let's see. First of all, I really want to show my appreciation and also like the uh my like gratitude for all of the kids, because it's really important for them to enhance and also get the experience about the exam. So as long as they take the exam, it's already totally fine. And also I know many of them like prepare a lot for the Math Kangaroo classes. So let's move on to the analysis first. So the basic information about Math Kangaroo level 1 to 2 is the total score is only 96 and we have 24 questions. 8 of them are the 3-point and 4-point and the 5-point each. So here we can see for this year's math competition, we still have a large amount of the questions lay in the spatial sense. For example, like we're gonna have the rotation and also the solid shapes and stuff. And beside that, we also have like 1/3 of them gonna be the numbers, but it's not like the calculation. It's more about the word problems and also for example, like equations, things like that. Later I'm gonna show you. And the other will be the reasoning part. But I'm gonna first move on to the most important module in Math Kangaroo. So it's actually a very long-lasting trending in Math Kangaroo, especially for the 3-point and the 4-pointer questions. Many of the 3 and 4-pointer questions gonna lay in the spatial sense, because spatial sense is actually really introduced or touched in the school math. However, it is really important for the students at this age to build a very strong sense of the spatial. So they're gonna build up like the modules in their mind and then solve the problems by imagination. So that's why it's super important. So we can see for the spatial sense, basically it will be those different parts. The first part is definitely the symmetry, like how we're gonna imagine the other part, or we're gonna have like the compromising of the pictures and also the shapes, like overlapping, or like the big shape gonna be decomposed into different parts. So like the 2D and 3D and also different layers, all of them will be covered in the spatial sense under this umbrella. So we can see no matter what kind of the questions, you're gonna use like not only your wordings, you also need to depend on the help of the picture in order to find the answer. So all of those is super, super important about the imagination, and some like little of them will be covered in the school math. That's why Math Kangaroo actually show like it's not about the difficulty of the knowledge. It's more about like whether they have ever seen this kind of questions or they know how to deal with them. It's more about like accumulation of the problem solving skills. Okay, and another way or another trending or another major part for the level 1 and 2 gonna be the number. So number in the lower elementary grade means like you're gonna do the addition. For example, here we're gonna combine the questions in the real life setting and then ask them whether they can read the picture and then figure out the answer. However, many of the questions in Math Kangaroo in terms of the numbers is actually like building the foundation about the later on algebra thinking. For example, here we have this equation like the one dog and one puppy equal this number, and what if we have like two puppies and one dog? So it's basically what we're gonna do in the future when we like introduce to the algebra. We're gonna know the equation, how to find the value of the x, right? So that will be all of the very, very basic and very classic, like the competition mindset. That is, we're gonna know how to figure out the missing number by build up the equation we can get by analyzing the information from the question. So another trending is really, really special in Math Kangaroo. And now this skill set is actually becomes more popular, not only in Math Kangaroo, but also in AMC 8. So I can give you an example. You can actually spend some time to look at all the questions here. For example, what is this key module? So it's not only about like the math thing, it's like a combination of math and the reading comprehension. So for all of those questions, when we start from the 4 pointers, it's no longer about whether you know how to solve the problem. It's more about whether you know where to start with. So you can spend some time to read the question. For example, this one. There are 13 cubes stacked in the corner of a room. Each is colored gray or white. Directly below each gray cube is a white cube, and directly below each white cube is a gray cube. How many white cubes are in the stack? So after you read that, you can imagine if you have never touched any or you have never met any Math Kangaroo problems, it is impossible for you to read just one time and understand what's going on here. Not to mention that we still have this very complicated picture here. So you can see reading in the math is not equal to the regular reading comprehension. It's more about, first, whether we understand the problem scenarios. That means whether we know what will be the things going on here, whether it is a train or we are go boating, or those scenario and conditions. And beside that, whether we are able to spot the keywords and the logic cues. For example, here we can see directly. Directly is super, super important. It actually shows us the position between the white and the black one, right? This is a keyword that we need to immediately realize. And beside that, turning the word into the visual modules and also the steps. It's exactly here or in any of the questions when we move on to the 4-pointer and 5-pointers when we have the long paragraphs. It's like whether we can turn into the very long sentence into very, very simple like the module. So then we can understand it better. So for example, here, this one, maybe we will just say like what? We're gonna have a white one, and then directly we're gonna have the black, right? And then later on, when we want to count the white, we will just do, okay, so I'm going to count by this column, how many white do I have? So all of those will be the very useful like visual tools to help us. So beside that, we will also have like the filtering the distraction and focusing on useful information. So this is not very common in the level 1 and 2. However, when we move on to 3 and 4, in those like higher levels, it's really, really important to filtering what will be the really important information I need to understand, what will be some not very useful, and it's more like a distraction. We will be able to distinguish between those different information. And after that, the final thing is the math reading is really, really about whether you are able to infer hidden math relationships from the text. For example, let's look at this question. Each time a coin is put into the machine, a ball falls randomly from the bottom row. What is the smallest number of coins Sophia must have to be sure that she will get a white ball? So here we can see actually the hidden math relationship here is what? It is the smallest number, right? We need to understand the smallest number and know what should we do. Actually, it's not like we're gonna see what will be the most possible or most quick way. It's more like what is a worst scenario, right? So that's how we're gonna infer from the reading the questions and find the keywords and then find the answer. So reading or the math reading, it is a very special skills that Math Kangaroo really focus on and put a lot of emphasis on, because it is how we're gonna like enhance our analysis skills, and also how we're gonna set up the modules and find the information to build up the problem solving entire set. So as I mentioned before, not only for Math Kangaroo, in the AMC8, this is also become more and more important. For example, in the AMC8 questions, we will also see like the math reading actually means a lot here. On Monday, Tay has, I think it means 8. And every day he either gains or double the amount of money he had on the previous day. How many different dollar amounts could Tay have on Thursday? On Thursday, like which means like 5 days later, right? So we can see for all of those kind of questions, it's more about like we need to understand what is this paragraph on and what will be the important things we need to get from the question. So that's why it's really important. Okay. So then we're gonna move on to the Think Academy part. So since it is not only it is not taught in the school, but also very important in Math Kangaroo, we also have a lot of things. For example, in the lower grade, we're gonna just make sure students know how to find like the key important information in the simple logic sentence. For example, who and how many. And in the grade 2 to 3, we're gonna have like how does one thing relate to the other. It will be a little bit more complex. And then in the future, when we want to prepare for the AMC8, it's not only about like to find the relationship. It's more about whether we're gonna be able to filter the useful information and then decide how we're gonna use the information to solve the problem. So it will be a more long-term and also like a very long connection. All right. So then we're gonna move on to the trending of the level 3 and 4. So just to wrap up, for level 1 and 2, the most important thing is the spatial sense. And then it's about the like the number. Number is more about the foundation for the algebra thinking in the middle school. And then another thing is about the basic skills, that is whether we are able to do the math reading. So move on to the level 3 and 4. Of course, we still have we're gonna have more like different modules, number, geometry, which will be spatial sense in the lower grade, and word problem, which basically is a math reading. However, beside that, we have another thing that is a combinatorics. So combinatorics is actually a very important part starting from the level 3 and 4. And when we transit to the level Math Kangaroo level 5 and 6 and also AMC8. So later on, I'm gonna show you. But we're gonna start from the geometry first. Why we always emphasize on geometry, as I mentioned before, in the school math, algebra is super important. We're gonna learn like we're gonna spend like 2 or even 3 years in the middle school to learn about Algebra 1, pre-algebra, and also Algebra 2. However, in the entire middle school to the high school, we just have 1 year to learn about the geometry. So geometry is actually a very weak part in terms of the Yes, I'm gonna send the webinar later in terms of like the school math. But geometry is actually as important or even more important in the math competition side. So that's why if we really want to prepare for the long-term math competition, geometry is something we need to start from the young age and like always like keep on enhancing all the way to the high school. So when we move on to the level 3 and 4, geometry gonna become more complicated. It's not only about one thing, it's about like basically two things. The first thing is about the geometry transformation. So we can say it's more like whether we are able to visualize and construct the new shape based on the shape we know. And beside that, we're going to have the spatial sense and the logic. That is a combination about not only the shapes we have, but also to combine with other modules, especially about the logic or even like algebra thinking, to have some very, very complicated and multi-step questions. So the very special feature about the geometry in 3 and 4 is we're gonna, as I mentioned before, the shape recognition and also the geometry transformation. And those parts are also very frequent and popular in the AMC8. For example, for the shape recognition, we're gonna find like the area and the perimeter for the irregular shapes in the AMC8. But all of those based on the regular shapes, whether we have a very or grasp a very deep understanding for them. And the geometry transformation is like whether we're gonna use on the congruent and the similar shapes to do that. So you can see here, as we can see later before, we're gonna have like all of those important information learned in the our long-term classes, because we will also have some very classic questions about the geometry, so students will be more familiar in the daily life, not only in the preparation for the test. And another thing is the combinatorics. So combinatorics is also very classic in the math competition because it is very comprehensive. You need to analyze the information. You need to find out what will be the correct step to start with. And you also need to use logical reasoning to know, if I know this number, what does it mean? How can I continue? If I miss that number, from where I can get that? So it's all about the very comprehensive like mindset to solve the combinatorics. For example, even if we know like the most classic thing is, well, we have 3 people and how many ways there are, but if we change just one condition, we have 3 people, but A and B must be neighbors. How many different ways we have? Or we have 4 people, but we have one person, she doesn't want to be the leader. How many like different ways we have? So you can see just for like the lining up problems, we're gonna have so many different ways to do that. So the comprehensive and also like one module, but you are able to deal with a lot of like similar but different modules is also very important, and we need to spend time to work on it. Okay, so basically what we can see is as things, it is very, very complicated. So we will not only learn from the 5th grade to prepare for the AMC8. We're gonna starting from the 3rd grade, from the very easy, like the inclusion and exclusion, those topics, all the way to the G5. We're gonna have all of those like the cycles problem and combining with like the logic reasoning to make sure students gonna develop in the long term and gonna like review and renew their understanding a lot of times. Okay, so then as we mentioned before, even though this is actually an analysis about the trendings for Math Kangaroo, I actually mentioned about the AMC8 a lot. It is because actually in the US education system, especially about the math learning, we have a very standardized like the pathway. Even if we want to like have our ultimate goal as application for the top universities, and as we all know, it has like 3 very, very major parts that will be the long-term goal for every student. First thing is about the academic background. It's basically about the school thing, like what we're gonna do in the school. And the other thing is about the competition part. However, what we believe is, as Think Academy, we want to help all the kids, no matter in the school academic part, but also in our like bonus or in our spike part, whether we're gonna help the students to find a very outstanding extracurriculum and also their spike in terms of like the STEM field or in terms of like the math field. So in terms of the academic background, we all know that it is really, really important to first like have a very deep understanding and a solid foundation in the school math, and also we need to have like taking the college level math courses to make sure we have a very strong academic background. So that's why we can see this is also something we're gonna do here, you can see here, for many of the students, when they wanna apply for the college, what they're gonna do is prepare from the middle school. So many of the schools will also provide differentiated like math learning pathway. So our recommended, or like if you wanna looking for a higher chance to be enrolled in the universities, actually we definitely need to start to learn about the pre-algebra in the 6th grade, or you can even go beyond that. You can learn algebra 1. So in this step-by-step application, you will be able to have like the math AP classes or other STEM AP classes, including biography, chemistry, and those things in the high school. And what we can do here for Think Academy is our honors track will definitely have like 1 year ahead of the Common Core grade. So we will be able to learn like more STEM field like AP courses in the high school, and also even in the elementary school, we're gonna be 1 year ahead, which means we will be able to get in touch with like the pre-algebra, those like those content earlier. And another thing is, we will also have a very strong foundation and also curriculum for the competition. So in terms of the competition, we can see it is actually no matter for the AMC 10 or the AMY qualifiers, there will be a bonus when you want to apply for the top 30 colleges. And here in the US, we have a very standardized like a path 3. Many of our students gonna start from the Math Kangaroo because it will get a very solid foundation about like the math thinking, the logic reasoning, and also problem solving skills. And then we're gonna have like the transition to MC8 and all the way to 10 and 12 and AMY. So here we can see what we're gonna do is in the lower grade, basically we're gonna focus on the foundation. So we're gonna use Math Kangaroo to make sure students will always be interested in math, and they will gonna have like the logic reasoning and skill set to be settled. And later on, when we move on to the 3rd grade in our challenge track, we're gonna like smoothly move on to the Math Kangaroo level 3 and 4. So basically in the 3rd grade, we're gonna finish everything about the Math Kangaroo 3 and 4. Then in the 4th grade, in our challenge track, all the children, they will be able to cover 80% of the knowledge points in MC8, which means in the next year, in the 5th grade, they will be able to have the first try about MC8, and they will be like the honor roll or distinguished honor roll in the 6th grade. So when they move on to the 7th grade, they will be able to try the AMC 10 and 12. So that will be our goal for all the kids if they wanna not only have a very solid learning and academic background in the school, but also if they are very like passionate about math, we provide a very strong like a platform for students as long as they wanna move on to the math competition trend as well. So you can see here, we're gonna have our classes to be very interactive, and we're gonna have like the very detailed report to make sure this is a systematic path to the mathematical excellence. All right. So here, if you wanna actually help the kids to not only like not stop at the Math Kangaroo, we wanna move forward. For example, for the lower kids, we wanna move on to the level 3 and 4, or if we want to move on to the AMC 8, our curriculum will definitely cover everything you need. So here will be the introduction you're gonna receive from our very professional teachers for the grade 1 to 2 or grade 3 to 4. So as long as you reach out to an advisor, they're gonna give you the more individualized and personalized feedback. So to help you to try our long-term classes, and it will be just $1. And then we're gonna move on to the score checking here. Later on, I'm gonna go back if you need the QR code. So here for this part, no worries, later on we're gonna send you the playback. And here, the official scores will be published on Math Kangaroo website on May the 1st. So here it's more like an estimation of the scores you're gonna get, but all the questions are real. So you can also invite your parent to do, invite your kids to do it again. So this is how we're gonna check. You're gonna log in and then go to like the my registration and then move on to the test center you have. So you're gonna check and get the score from the official website. And the award will still be the similar. So we're gonna have the national top 20. Basically, it will be like 75 to 74. That will be the score for that part. And for the state award, in this state, if you are like the top 3, you will get another award as well. So now we can get our pen or paper ready. If your kid is here, let's see. So for the first question, actually, we're gonna go through very quickly because the three-pointer questions, it's not that challenging. It's more about whether we read the question carefully and check the picture carefully. All right? Yes. All right, so here's the answer for the first question. And this is the second. You don't need to actually screenshot because later on you can check the playback. And this is the third. See, like the first 3 questions, they are all about the shapes and also the spatial sense. And the fourth question. Okay, the fifth one, still the spatial sense. The sixth question. The seventh. The eighth. Okay, so here what I want to say for the, so just now you have like a very quick like taste about the three-pointer questions. So I really want to share with you is if you compare this year's question with like maybe 10 years ago or like 5 years ago, you're gonna see like the question is not that hard. So I think that's why Math Kangaroo always mention and estimate that they want to have all the kids to be more confident. So that's why as long as they are able to be patient and read the question carefully, I believe all the kids they will be able to get the three-pointer question correct. So now let's move on to the four-pointer ones, starting from the nice question. 10. Another thing about Math Kangaroo is you're gonna see actually they have a quite a standard like a question pool. However, even though they look similarly, they're gonna actually ask or design a question from a very brand new angle. So previously for this kind of questions, it's more like, well, you're gonna just check how many layers there are, or like for example, in the second layer, what is the shape of the mat? But see, this year, they're gonna have a brand new angle to ask the question, but still test the similar, like test the same skills. That is whether they're gonna understand the overlapping in terms of the pictures and in terms of the shapes. Okay, the 11th and the 12th. Another thing is you can see here, picture and the paragraph, wording and picture, they are closely connected with each other. So it definitely can give the scaffolding, but sometimes it will also be some distraction information. So it's really important for the students whether they can distinguish how to combine or use a picture very cleverly to make the question easier. 13th, 14th. 15th, 16th, 17. All right, so just now are the four-pointer question. So for the four-pointer question, you're gonna see actually it's not like very straightforward. You need to read and to think, and it definitely need to have at least the 2 steps to finish the question. So now we're gonna move on to the fifth, for the 5-pointer questions. And I mentioned before, for the 5-pointer, it's more about whether you can understand what is a question asking about, what is the scenario, what should I do here? So we're gonna have the long paragraphs, and it's more about the logical reasoning and also like reading comprehension questions. So you can take a look. This is the first one of the 5-pointer question. And then the 18th. And then the 19th and 20th. So this question actually appears last year in level 1 and 2 for the final question. It's kind of similar thing. So you can see that they share the similar pool, question pool, but they're gonna definitely use a different way to ask the question. And 21st. And 22nd. And 23rd. See the long paragraph, the long paragraph. And the final question. This one is also very classic. This is, as we mentioned before, the algebra thinking, the foundation of the equation. So to prepare for Math Kangaroo is not that hard. It's more like you're gonna just go through about the traditional or the very classic modules we have. But the knowledge point is similar. The hard thing is whether we can really be very, very flexible to use what we know to solve the new problems. That's why the reading comprehension and also like the way to be flexible to understand what is on essence, what is asking about, and how can we solve the problem. The problem solving skills is really important in the Math Kangaroo. All right, so here we can see actually that will be the previous like Math Kangaroo award rate we have here. For example, for the national top 3 in the national wide, we're gonna have about like 500, and then move on to the national top 10, we have 2,000 something, and then move on to the national top 20, we have more than 4,000, almost 5,000. That will be the entire US students, and that will be the award we have in Think Academy. So we really hope if you get the score from your report, please share with us and let's celebrate together. All right, so finally that will be the 12 classes you can try for the long-term learning, not only for the Math Kangaroo, but also for the MC8. Or if you want to prepare for the school advanced math, for example, you want to prepare for the top 1% in the math or the already classes, already test, you can also take a try in our honors track classes. Okay, that will be everything I want to share with you today. So I'm gonna move on to the questions you have. So the first question is, will you be sending the webinar after the session? Yes, we're gonna send you from the email. And there is Math Olympiad as well. Could you talk more about how MO versus AMC stand in terms of the college application importance? So definitely, as we can see for that pyramid, so we're gonna start from the AMC 8 and 10, and then 10 and 12, they are the same. And then we're gonna move on to AMY qualifier. So when we move on to the AMY qualifier, the next step will be the USAMO or USAJMO. So it is even more selected as an AMC series. However, if you want to be one of the USAMO or JMO student, you need to start from the AMC 10. So that will be the difference or the pathway we have in terms of the Math Olympiad and also the AMC series. So AMC gonna help the US Math Olympiad team to select the potential like team members. If I wish to join my child upcoming year, where should I enroll him? So I think this is a very great time because our summer classes is already open. So you can also go through our like a QR code here. You can scan the code for G1 and 2 or G3 and 4. Then our advisor gonna introduce like we're gonna have a free evaluation and give you like the individualized information about which class or which level your child can start with. One can check the scores. So just now we already go through about the scores, and later on we gonna send you from the via email about the very detailed like explanation for each question, including the answers. And if you wanna know the real score from Math Kangaroo, it will be May. It will be May the 1st. Will you send out link for the paper? So what we can do is we cannot send you like the blank paper from for this year's question. What we can do is we can send you the explanation about this year's question. So just wait for the, if you wanna have like the questions, we can send you the question with explanation. That's what we can do here. Do you have coaching for the 5th grade Math Kangaroo? Yes, because if you want to prepare for the 5th grade Math Kangaroo, our grade 4 math long-term classes will cover everything about the Math Kangaroo level 5 and 4 because Math Kangaroo level 5 and 4 is actually included in the AMC topic, AMC 8 topic. And as long as our classes cover everything about the AMC 8 content, it is actually how you're gonna not only prepare for MC8, but also prepare for Math Kangaroo level 5 and 6 in the 4th grade in our system. If we join Math Kangaroo 3 and 4, will you train and make them take tests? So this year's test is already over, and what we recommend is if you haven't tried Math Kangaroo yet, you can actually join us now, and later on for the next year around like the March, your kid will be able to take the test. And if you join now, I believe like after 1 year of the training, it is definitely a very like promising for your kid to get, I believe that the national, definitely at least the national top 20. How many classes 1 week? We have 1 class 1 week. And yes, it is a group class. We have like the online group classes. All right. So thank you for coming today. So what you're gonna receive after this webinar is, first of all, you're gonna receive the playback for the webinar. And the second thing is you're gonna get the detailed explanation for the for this year's test paper. And if you have any questions, please just let us know. You can always like reach out to our advisor and then get the most personalized information you want. Do you have classes only for competition? So it's actually based on which level or which grade your kid is in. If they are in the level 1 and 2, yes, because our challenge track just cover like everything about the Math Kangaroo, and we also have a little bit about like the foundation for the MC8. So the challenge track is basically about the competition. And if you move on to level 3 and 4, so we need to like move on to the competition track. So we're gonna have the learning. And when we move on to the middle school, we have a specific class about the AMC 8 camp and also the AMC 10 camp. So that will be a very long-term classes starting from the AMC 8 series. Where can you see this year's question and answers? Later on, we're gonna send you. Thank you, but the test is not the same. Last paper test is different styles. So could you please elaborate on that? Did you mean like for different countries or the different year? Okay, so if you want to learn more about the fees and tuitions in terms of different track, we can like our advisor can send to you. Okay, so thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, so please just feel free to let me know. Different without Math Kangaroo tuition in Think Academy. But the test is not the same last paper. Different without Math tuition. Okay, thank you. All right. So I gonna stop the recording. And if